And now, TSPN News with Tom Slivick. Comprehensive news because in today's world, you need more than just sound bites. TSPN, streaming on the World Wide Web, and now on demand at TSPNTV.com. Hi everyone, Tom Slivick, and welcome to TSPN TV. This episode is going to be about the drought, and we just got a little bit of rain, but believe me and everybody out there knows we're in a big drought. We need about 18 inches to get to normal. We're going to be talking about the drought and the conditions with Sergeant John Silva. How you doing?
Good. Good to see you, Tom.
Okay, and it's good to see you again too. And you're the Emergency Service Officer?
I am Emergency Services Coordinator for OES.
Okay, great. And last Tuesday, you gave a presentation to the Board of Supervisors, and I think a lot of people will be interested in all the facts and things that you brought to the Board of Supervisors, and we're going to get them out there to our viewers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. As we all know, okay. California.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I was going to introduce you and let everybody know what we're going on. We're going to take our first break, and then we'll be back, and John will give us that report. So stay with us right here on TSPN. You're watching Amador County's #1 news and sports leader, TSPN. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm with Sergeant John Silva, the Emergency Service Officer and the Coordinator. And we're going to hear a report that he gave to the Amador County Board of Supervisors. Go ahead, John. Start us out.
Sure. Well, as I indicated, we've been in a drought now for 2 years. We're going into our third year. So drought is at the forefront of the news. There's been a lot that's going on with that. This year it's been particularly bad. Many parts of the state have had set records for the least amount of rainfall.
Right.
Our snowpack currently is at 14% of normal. The grasses aren't growing for agricultural and ranching interests.
Right.
So there's a huge impact there. So there's a lot going on. The state's gotten involved, and so there's been a lot of press, a lot of attention that's been happening. So it seemed very timely to speak to the Board of Supervisors, as you already indicated.
Right.
With my position in OES, I'm kind of the point person for the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services. So I'm in the loop on a lot of things.
And of course, the governor just came out with his declaration of emergency and put forward a few things too, right? So it is very dry out there. I was commenting to you just before we went on. I really took notice of it, I believe, the other day when I was driving through the county. I'm going like, really, there's no green grass.
Yeah, and that's just a huge impact. I've been thinking the same thing. Every time I drive, everything's just dreary and brown looking. And the impact it's had on ranching is to the point where auction houses, for example, which are typically slow at this time of year, are auctioning cattle off at record numbers because ranchers can't afford to keep their cattle because they have to bring in feed from outside sources, and they simply can't afford to do so.
And the feed has gone up. Richard Forrester, supervisor, was just on our show last Wednesday or Monday. I talked with him, and he said his went from like $200 to $250 for what he had bought just a few months ago. So in 6 months' time, that's quite an increase.
Yeah, and then it compounds itself when typically it would be free with natural grasses growing.
Right.
And the little bit of grass that started to grow during that late fall rain that we had, we've had drought since then, no rains, and that's all dried up. And so the grass crop just plain, even if we get a lot more rain, just won't recover to the point where it's going to help the ranchers.
So certainly the ranchers are, and the animals are going to be stressed out unless we get up to 18 inches of rain. That's a terrific amount of rain that we would need to get to be there. So they're already making plans and taking care of business by making their herds a lot smaller.
Yeah, and in some extreme cases, some ranchers are actually having to eliminate their herds through the culling process, and that's a pretty drastic measure, but they have to do what they have to do to be able to stay in business. The U.S. Department Department of Agriculture, the USDA, issued a drought disaster last August of 2013, and they renewed it as of January of 2014. And so there is some financial assistance. It's not free money. They still have to give it back, but there is financial assistance to the ranching community and to the agricultural community.
Okay, and talking about the agricultural side, we have the wine grape growers, the grape growers, and they must be concerned about their vines as well.
Yeah, we were talking earlier off camera, when we first, moved up here, there, certainly weren't the number of wineries that there are now. So it's really become a huge part of this county and a huge part of the economy for our county.
Okay, so how does that affect us economically? Have we gone through all the impacts? What did you tell the Board of Supervisors?
Well, essentially, this disaster, and make no mistake about it, this is a disaster. The difference between this and, for example, tornadoes and hurricanes, it's easy to get a preliminary damage estimate when there's a hurricane or a tornado. You fly over and do your economic, damage assessments. With a drought, it's much more difficult to do so. For example, groundwater is a huge concern as well. In the news, we talk about the reservoir levels because they're easy to see and it provides quite a visual impact. But with Amador County having at least 50% of the population on private wells, that's a huge concern as well.
Right, and we talk about the reservoirs. I have a report like Shasta, Orville, they're at 36% full. And that's about 50% of normal for this time of year. And this report was, it's probably 15 days old. Los Banos, 30% full, 42% of normal. And so we really don't have a lot of water. I understand there's about 20 cities that might be running out of drinking water in 60 to 120 days. Did you speak to any of that, or do you have any of that knowledge?
Well, yes, the reservoirs in this county are doing slightly better, but that's on a relative basis. They're still in critical shape. Jackson Valley Irrigation District, of course, relies on Lake Amador, and there are certainly concerns with that. I've been in meetings with JVID, with Amador Water Agency, and there's all types of contingency plans that are in place. In fact, Amador Water Agency recently, their board of directors are asking for a 20% voluntary reduction in water use.
Okay. So we've got that. Probably we may as well say, or did the supervisor say, just the people with wells, do they need to conserve as well? I mean, I will, just knowing we're going to affect the water table, and we're not getting a lot. So I mean, voluntarily, I know I'm going to probably be doing that.
Yeah, I've been on both well, and of course now I'm on county water. But prior to this, when I was on a well, I would certainly be concerned, and I would certainly cut back because the cost of a new well it's nothing cheap.
Right. Okay. And we might even be forced, people with wells, to wind up getting some drinking water or water from the Amador Water Agency. I believe when I talked to Gene Mancebo, he said they might have plans to where, if that is the case for people, where they will help them with bottled water or come down and fill up bottled water. I'm not sure what all that was and all the plans with the water agency. Have you talked with them about it then?
Yeah, I have, and I think it's just some great planning that they're doing, not just for their customers for AWA, but also for people who aren't AWA users. So hats off to the Amador Water Agency.
And a lot of us that use wells, like I buy my water. I don't really drink my well water. It doesn't taste that good, be having a lot of iron in it, okay? But certainly for other uses, I certainly don't plan on watering my yard or anything like that.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. It's a bad time to have a lawn.
Right. Now, I have no lawn. But, okay, so anyway, John, where do we want to go from there? What about, would you like to speak to?
Well, one thing that I'd like to discuss a little bit, of course, is the governor's declaration. As a lot of the public knows, the governor did do a disaster declaration.
This might be a good time to take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the governor's plan, okay?
Very good.
All right. Stay with us right here on TSPN.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.